They blocked her car at the end of our street like it was a traffic stop. Two men in cheap uniforms, fake badges shining too bright, hands already resting on their belts. My wife rolled her window down just a little. "Is there a problem?" she asked, calm but alert. One of them smirked. "Routine HOA compliance check. Step out of the vehicle." That's when my phone buzzed, her location shared, one-word text. "Something's wrong." She noticed it before I did. The car had no numbers, no real plates, and the badge, it was plastic. When she questioned them, one leaned in too close and said, "Don't make this difficult, ma'am." His hand grabbed her door handle. That was his first mistake. She slowly stepped out, hands visible, eyes scanning. They thought she was scared. They thought she was alone. Then the shorter one whispered, "Your husband owes fines. You can pay now or we tow the car." He reached for her arm. Neighbors peeked through curtains, but no one stepped out. My wife took a breath, looked him dead in the eye, and said quietly, "You're not cops." The taller one laughed, "And you're not walking away." That's when she moved, fast, controlled, like someone who had trained for this moment her whole life. His wrist twisted, his balance broke, and in one smooth motion he was face down on the pavement, screaming. The other froze in shock. What they didn't know, what the HOA didn't know, was who my wife really was before she became their target. She didn't chase the second guy. She didn't need to. She stepped back, phone already recording, voice steady. "Stay right there," she said. He looked around, panic all over his face, then bolted toward their fake patrol car. He didn't get far. His foot slipped on the curb and he crashed hard, badge skidding across the road. Plastic, hollow, fake. My wife backed away, locked herself in the car and called me. I was already running before she finished the first sentence. When I reached the street, real sirens were getting closer. Neighbors were outside now, phones up, whispering. The two men were sitting on the curb, hands shaking, trying to explain themselves to real officers. One cop picked up the fake badge, turned it over, and looked at them slowly. "Who told you to do this?" he asked. They stayed quiet, too quiet. Then one of them looked past the officer, straight at the HOA office down the block. That's when I knew this wasn't random. This was planned. The officer walked over to us. "Your wife defend herself?" I nodded. He glanced at her, then back at the two men. "Good," he said, "because impersonating law enforcement is a felony." My wife squeezed my hand and whispered, "This goes deeper." She was right, because an hour later, when the police checked the fake car's trunk, they found HOA violation notices, pre-filled fines, and a printed map of our neighborhood with one house circled in red. Ours. The officer looked at me and said, "You might want to sit down." I didn't. I couldn't. My wife stared at the map like it might bite her. Our house wasn't just circled. There were notes next to it. Tow time, lock change, intimidation. My jaw tightened. This wasn't about rules. This was about breaking us. That's when Karen showed up, HOA president. Same fake concern, same tight smile. "Oh my God, what happened?" she asked, acting shocked. My wife turned to her slowly. "Your people tried to drag me out of my car." Karen's smile slipped for half a second, just enough. The officer asked her a simple question. "Do you know these men?" She shook her head too fast. "Of course not." But one of the fake cops laughed, nervous, loud. "You told us it was approved," he said. "You said your lawyer cleared it." Silence fell hard. Phones were recording now. Neighbors leaned in. Karen's face went pale. She opened her mouth, then closed it. That's when my wife spoke again, calm as ever. "You picked the wrong house." The officer nodded and pulled out his cuffs. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, "we're going to need you to come with us." She started yelling about authority, about the board, about rules. No one listened. As they walked her toward the cruiser, she looked back at us, eyes full of hate. What she still didn't know was that my wife used to train officers on how to spot fake cops, and every move those men made was already on camera. Karen didn't even make it to the station before things got worse for her. One of the officers got a call, stepped aside, then came back with a look that said this was no longer small. He asked my wife again, very respectfully, "Ma'am, can you tell me your background?" My wife didn't brag. She never does. She just said, "Former federal trainer. I used to teach officers how to survive fake traffic stops." Everything clicked. The way she moved, the way she stayed calm, the way those men panicked the second control slipped from their hands. The officer nodded and said, "Then you already know this wasn't an accident." They searched Karen's HOA office that same evening. What they found made neighbors go quiet. Fake uniforms, more plastic badges, pre-written violation letters, even a list titled "Pressure Targets." Our names were at the top. Karen had been running her own little enforcement unit, using fear to force people out, then buying their properties cheap through shell companies. My wife watched the evidence laid out on the table and whispered, "I warned her." By nightfall, news vans were parked on our street. The story was everywhere. Fake HOA cops arrested, HOA president linked to impersonation scheme. Karen was let out in handcuffs, head down, no smile left. She looked small then, powerless, and standing there under the flashing lights, holding my wife's hand, I realized something simple and clear. They didn't ambush my wife. They walked straight into the wrong lesson. The next morning felt unreal. Our street was quiet again, but everything had changed. Neighbors who never waved before stopped by, shaking their heads, saying things like, "We knew something was off," and "About time someone stood up to her." My wife listened, polite, calm, like this was just another day, but I could see it in her eyes. She was still replaying every second of that stop. By noon, the arrests went public. Karen wasn't just charged for hiring fake cops. They added conspiracy, fraud, and witness intimidation. Turns out other families had been threatened too. Elderly couples, single moms, one veteran who almost lost his house because he couldn't fight back. All of them finally spoke up once they saw she was gone. A real officer stopped by our place before sunset. He handed my wife her phone back, still logged into the video she recorded. "This," he said, tapping the screen, "is what broke the whole case open." My wife nodded. "That's why I teach people to record first and act second." That night, we sat on the porch, lights off, just listening to the wind. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said quietly, "They thought fear would control me." I squeezed her hand. "They forgot," she continued, voice steady, "fear only works on people who don't know their power." And somewhere downtown, in a cold holding cell, Karen was finally learning the same lesson. A week later, the HOA board dissolved overnight. Members resigned, lawyers disappeared, signs came down like nothing had ever existed. The rules that once scared everyone suddenly meant nothing. Real inspectors came through, quietly fixing records, returning titles, undoing damage. Families slept easier, kids played outside again. My wife never gave interviews. She didn't want fame. When a reporter asked her why she fought back, she just said, "I wanted to go home safe." That line spread everywhere. One evening, we drove past the spot where it all happened. Same road, same curb, but no fear left in the air. She looked out the window and said softly, "They thought uniforms gave them power." I nodded. "They were wrong," she continued. "Power comes from knowing who you are and not backing down." I didn't fight for this country to watch my wife be hunted on our own street, and she didn't survive years of training to be scared by plastic badges and fake authority. They tried to make an example out of us. Instead, we became the reason their whole system fell apart.